It's time for the Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast.
On this episode of the Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast, football is back. We will be taking a look inside the Hall of Fame inductees and taking a look at the Hall of Fame game, along with an AFC North preview and so much more. We hope to catch you on the other side.
Oh, indeed. I'm glad you connected. This is Dave Johnson, voice of the Washington Wizards. You have connected to the right place because you are listening to my man, Josh Kirby, on Sports Podcast.
All right, another edition of the Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast, part of the Mayo Please Podcast Network, brought to you in part by Rat 11 Chips. Make sure you find a fresh bag today at your local Martin's, Food Lion, and Giant. They're really great. I'm actually going to go get some right after this, Dan. So, also, thanks to Dave Johnson and JR Beats Official, as always. Football's back. Dan Dembski's along with me. We're both excited. Glad we're getting able to do this finally. But we have a packed-in show, Dan. And
I'm very excited today, Josh.
I'm excited for it. Are we ready to just dive in?
Let's do it, man.
Yeah. So, Dan was excited. We had to find time for Dan in his busy schedule, doing what he does best, because he wanted to talk about the AFC North, our AFC North preview. Yeah, but as you know, because the Ravens are in that division, and Dan is a Ravens fan.
I am.
Fortunately, I don't have an issue with the Ravens. I do love when Kirk Cousins came into the game.
Oh, let's not talk about that, please.
Oh, you remember that.
Of course.
The Redskins ran
I said,
the
who's
table.
Kirk Cousins? I said, oh, we've got this. This game is wrapped up.
Oh.
And because their star quarterback is hurt. And here comes this guy nobody knew except for Michigan State fans, and he just killed us. Man.
And what happened to Kirk Cousins now? He's playing for Minnesota.
He's off and gone, man.
Yeah.
He wanted that big money. And he got it, too.
Yep. So, AFC North preview. Oh, by the way, Dan's birthday was on Wednesday, so happy birthday,
Thank
Dan.
you, Josh.
The big 22.
Yeah. I'm old now.
Man, you're very old.
Ugh.
Unbelievable.
It hurts.
Yeah, I know. So, AFC North, what team you want to start with?
Start with the Bengals.
Yeah.
Start the bottom, shall we?
The bottom of the barrel. Man, the Cincinnati Bengals, I have them at 5-11. They just lost Marvin Lewis.
Yep.
This team is rebuilding. I've never even heard of their head coach's name before.
So in February they hired Zach Taylor, which everyone said the same thing. They said, "Who is that? Never heard of him." He was the quarterback coach for the Rams. Sounds kind of similar to like a Sean McVay sort of situation. And he's under 40 years old. He's 36 years old. But like you said, he's got his work cut out for him because this is a young, inexperienced team. And I don't really see a whole lot of positives this season for the Bengals, to be honest with you, Josh.
Yeah, I in my schedule, I don't have them winning a division game.
Yep, that's exactly what I have.
They're going to be struggling, hands down.
They're going to struggle
The
this year.
Bengals are a team that are going to struggle, and they need to this is going to be a rebuilding year, straight up, and they just need to find the pieces through free agency and possibly a draft next year. But, that's all right. All teams go through a rebuilding period, but the Bengals, it seems like they have a decent schedule. Some teams they play are the Rams. They have the Patriots.
They play the NFC West and the AFC East this year.
Yeah. That's pretty cool how they do that. Two divisions.
It makes it easier to follow, too, when you need to. Then they sprinkle in a random team, which, They
like
have,
the 49ers. And it's interesting.
the Jaguars is just a random team they threw in there.
Yeah,
AFC
it's
South team.
interesting how it's two divisions and then they just throw random teams.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of. It's kind of funny though. You get to see a team maybe you haven't seen them play in a while. So
Yeah,
I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
I like the
but-
way they schedule it.
But anyways,
Sorry about that. Got a
they
little
have
extra.
a bye week, week 9. Then
They're gonna need it.
Yeah, but what they have, I mean, their division games are spaced out. The top half with the Steelers on week 4, the Ravens on week 6, with the Cardinals in between. If the Bengals lose to the Cardinals, I have no hope for them. But
I don't
then
even know.
after their bye week, they have the Ravens week 10, week 12 the Steelers, week 14 the Browns. So every other week is a division game. Then week 17 they have the Browns again. So it's going to be tough for the Bengals. 5-11. What do you have, Dan?
I have 4-12, and I have a similar outlook.
Oh my gosh,
And-
we're not agreeing for once.
Well, we're only one game. Excuse me, we're only one game off, so we'll let it slide this time. So the Bengals lost their head coach Marvin Lewis, which, as we were saying in our production meeting, I think should have happened 5 or 6 years ago, due to their ineffectiveness in the playoffs, which they've had for years when they have made it.
The wild card and done.
Yep, the wild card and done, or even when I don't even know if they won the division during a span where he was head coach.
No, I don't believe they did.
I think it was just the Ravens and Steelers who had, because the Browns, Lord knows, they didn't do anything in those years. So they lost. They also lost Vontaze Burfict, which, love him or hate him, I mean, I think most people don't like him. I don't care for him. I think he's a dirty, cheap player, and he went to a team that I think sort of fits his play style, and that's the Raiders. So John Gruden gets a headhunter, if you will, because he seems to like to do that. He likes to hit with the head and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
but he was their best defender, I think. And Josh, they were one of the worst defenses last year. They were 30th. Let me get these stats. I got them written down here. They were 30th in points allowed. I think they gave up like 28 points per game on average, and they were also 32nd in yards given up per game. So this defense, they didn't really draft very well. They only drafted four players on defense out of 10 picks. So I mean, that's kind of dumb because that's where they need the most help, you know. But yeah, and then they've also had a slew of injuries. Of course, last year, A.J. Green and Andy Dalton both had injuries, and A.J. Green actually got hurt he's already hurt in training camp.
Yeah.
And I don't know when this news came out. I think it was a couple days ago. But he could miss.
I remember seeing that. I don't remember off the top of my head what kind of injury it was.
It was an Achilles type injury. They haven't really said off.
I don't think he's out for the season though.
No, he's going to miss several weeks,
Yeah.
3 or 4 weeks to start the season.
So
that's not
doesn't
good.
help.
That's not good for the Bengals because they need him for sure. If
Yeah.
they're gonna, and even though he's not the same player he was, 5 years ago, when we were talking about how he was one of the top receivers in the NFL, and of course Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton missed 5 games last year. He was banged up quite a bit. So they're just a bad team. And honestly, I had the same thing, Josh. I have them losing all their divisional games. I don't see them winning a single one, especially with the Browns up and coming, as we'll talk about here shortly. And I also see them losing at Seattle, at Los Angeles, at Los Angeles Rams. They lose at home to the Patriots, and they lose on the road to the Dolphins. So those 4 games and then the 8 divisional games. Or no, wait, 8 games, that doesn't make sense.
Uh-oh, he messed it
My
up.
math is terrible. It's 6 games. So anyway, I have to go back and so
Yeah. Anyways, but
I'll work it out. But
yeah.
but I still have 4-12. So
not bad. So moving on, we'll do the Steelers next. I know you don't like the Steelers.
I don't care for them, I'll be honest.
I
But
have the Steelers at 9-7.
that's fair.
They had a lot of drama in the locker room last year with Antonio Brown.
A lot of distraction. Absolutely.
Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, so both of
gone.
them. Yeah, and they're both gone, but still, I think they're gonna be rebuilding. I think the Steelers are on the the borderline of rebuilding. Ben Roethlisberger,
Yeah.
he is getting old. Who knows how much longer he will have in the league? Mike Tomlin. Yeah. I mean, in general, the Steelers had games that they could have won that they lost. And Mike Tomlin, he got extended one more year, but I think if the Steelers can't produce anything this year, the Steelers are going to let Mike Tomlin go.
You think so?
I mean, no.
Bold prediction.
I don't want it to happen because Mike Tomlin is a great coach. He doesn't put up with anything, and he gets the job done. But through the highs and lows, excuse me, I think the Steelers will let him go if they don't have a good season this year.
That is that's not out of the question. I think their fans have become frustrated, and I know both of us know several of their fans. So we kind of hear that rumbling every year about, and I think fans just do that in general when the team doesn't go 16-0. It's fire the coach, or they go after the quarterback, one of the two. So, Josh, I have 9-7 this year for the Steelers as well.
I got them losing to the Patriots, Chargers, Colts, Rams, Browns. The Browns will upset them at least once.
Yep, I have that too.
And the Bills and Ravens.
I have almost the same games.
Yeah, I have them splitting the Ravens because the division games, they're a toss-up, as I've always said.
That's exactly what I had in here. I said these division opponents are going to be a coin flip. Also, sorry, I got sidetracked. Their home games, they host Seattle, the Ravens, of course, the Colts, the Rams, the Dolphins. So they have some pretty tough home games, but they also have to go on the road and play, of course, New England in Week 1.
That's going to be really tough.
That's a Sunday night game, and
Sunday night.
I feel like the Patriots play every game prime time and every game at home, but that's just me.
No, they're playing prime time on Sunday night because NFL 100 wants to have the Packers and the Bears, which I agree with. The Patriots start their title defense Sunday night.
Yeah, totally agree. And then, of course, they have a couple more tough road games. I would say the Chargers is a really tough game, Josh. I think you'd agree. And that's really it as far as the road games. Outside of the division, they don't really play anybody else on the road. They go and play the Cardinals late in the season, and they also play the Jets in Week 16, which I think that's going to be a cakewalk.
Well,
we'll see. Actually, a lot of people think the Jets are going to be better, so maybe we'll see about that. I don't know.
All right.
But I want to talk quickly about the Steelers and their defense because I think that's where the question mark is going to be. On paper last year they had a pretty good defense, but when it came to making game deciding stops, the defense couldn't do it for them. And I
agree.
And I think T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree, who are outside linebackers, the Steelers' outside linebackers, are probably their best defenders right now. Now they've got some pretty veteran guys, but I think that those two guys are the future of this defense, and I think they got to build around them because obviously Ryan Shazier is not coming back. We know that he's. I guess he's already. I don't know if he's officially retired.
He's still getting paid.
Yeah, they probably still owe him some money. So, they added Steven Nelson, at the cornerback position, which I think is a decent pickup. He had 4 picks last year for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think that's going to be where the question mark sits because the Steelers have an unbelievable offense. Even without Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, they still have a lot of talent with Juju Smith-Schuster. And
Juju's going to develop into a great player, I think. Juju isn't all about the drama and stuff. He's just a kid.
He already is a great player, and he's only 22 years old.
Yeah,
so
he's going to develop even more and more, and I think he's a player for the Steelers that will be with the Steelers for a while.
Totally agree with you. Also, James Conner, too, did a great job filling in last year when Le'Veon Bell had his drama going on. He played well. I don't think he probably didn't play as well as Le'Veon Bell, but for a guy coming in with all that pressure to produce, I think James Conner played pretty well, and I think we'll see that continue this year, Josh.
My only regret is not drafting James Conner in my fantasy league last year.
I think a lot of people passed on him because they thought, he's going to be average at best. And, I think I would have agreed with that, quite honestly. And he had unbelievable shoes to fill. And that's, I guess, for the Steelers, that's all I really have to say. This is going to be like you said, this is going to be a telling season for Mike Tomlin's future.
Yeah.
And if they miss the playoffs, I think, like you said, time's out. He's gone. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. So I just want to quickly run down the division groupings, the division games. Week 4 and 5, the Bengals Ravens. Then you get 1, 2, 3, 4 games until week 11, 12, and 13. You play the Browns, Bengals, and Browns. Then you have week 17 where you play the Ravens. That's a weird division setup this year. 2 straight, 3 straight in a lone game for the last game of the season.
Usually not like that. That's for sure.
The Browns.
The Browns twice in 3 weeks. That's
strange. Weird. I mean, that's interesting, but very bizarre.
I think
it's almost like a doubleheader in baseball.
It's close. It's close.
But I think we would never see a team play back to back.
No, the NFL would never let that happen.
What if it did happen? That'd be interesting.
Well, let's just say, for example's sake, they play the Browns in Week 11, and the Bengals game for some reason gets canceled, then they're playing the Browns again. So, I mean, does that count? Or I guess it doesn't count in the back-to-back sense per se, but. Funnier things have happened. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, so moving on, Dan, I'll let you take the helm on this one a little bit more since it is the Baltimore Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens.
Let's hear your thoughts, you big Ravens fan.
Well, I think the Ravens are going to be very successful this year. Last year, of course, they finished 10-6, Josh. Joe Flacco, they struggled under Joe Flacco. They couldn't move the ball very well. In comes Lamar Jackson, rookie out of Louisville. Not a lot of... I guess I didn't have very high expectations when he took over. I thought, we're going to miss the playoffs and whatnot. Goes 6-1 as the starter. Almost wins that Chiefs game late in the season and up in Kansas City. The game where Patrick Mahomes threw a no-look pass to Tyreek Hill, 50 yards for a first down. I was so angry. Oh, my gosh. So the Ravens lost some players. They lost Terrell Suggs. Yeah, he's at the end of his career.
Yeah, playing on the Cardinals now, right?
Yeah, he went to
great way to end a career.
That's crazy, man. He went to school at Arizona, I think. So he's kind of back where he started, I guess you'd say. They lost C.J. Mosley, which I think is a pretty big loss. He's really starting to come into his own with that defense. And really starting to exceed expectations. And then they lost Eric Weddle, which also on the defensive side of the ball, which he had a pretty good year last year, but again he's 30+ years old now. You can't expect these guys to produce forever. So I have them going 12-4 for this season. Very, very. That's a high total. I know. I really could go with 11-5 too. I could see them dropping another game possibly. This whole thing is just pick your poison. You never know.
Yeah.
And I also only have them losing one division game, which I think is wild because I think they'll lose to the Browns at least once. So that'll drop mine to 11-5. But right now I have them losing on the road at Kansas City, at Pittsburgh, at Seattle, and at LA because their home schedule is really not that bad this year. So we'll see what happens. Also, of course, Earl Thomas, the new safety for the Ravens, gets a shot at revenge in Week 7 against his former team, the Seattle Seahawks. So that'll be one I think everyone will be watching. That's a 4:25 slot on Fox. So I think we'll have Buck and Aikman on the call for that one.
I think
that should be a fun game.
I think Earl Thomas is a great addition to y'all. Will bolster the defense a lot. Part of the Seattle's defense once upon the Legion of Boom.
The Legion of Boom.
Yeah. So good stuff there.
Also, sorry, I'm not done yet. You thought I was done, didn't
No,
you?
I was just chiming in my part.
Of course, they also signed Mark Ingram. He's not going to be a 2,000-yard rusher by any stretch, but he can certainly help them out. And then also they drafted that guy Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, who is Antonio Brown's cousin. He's a big play receiver, so the Ravens really needed a receiver. They drafted him, and they also drafted Miles Boykin, I believe. Let me double check. I didn't write this down. Shame on me.
So while he's doing that,
Yes, Miles Boykin. Also drafted him in, I think, if not the round after, then 2 rounds after. So they have some really good receivers now, and that's really what they've been lacking, Josh. So I think the offense will be better. The defense will be better. I think the big question mark, obviously, and everyone's wondering, is Lamar Jackson going to run the ball 15 to 20 times a game? Which I don't think he will, even though John Harbaugh says he will.
protect the quarterback line. That's all you got to do. Protect the quarterback. Lamar Jackson should not be running as much as he was last year.
And he needs to slide. He took a lot of hits last year where I was holding my breath saying, oh, my God.
Reminds me of a certain somebody who...
A certain backup quarterback for the Ravens
who
now.
plays on the Ravens now and broke his thumb.
It all comes full circle, man. Yeah, he did break his thumb. He'll be out. But as long as Lamar stays healthy, that's okay. We'll see what happens. So that's what I have for the Ravens. Like I said, 12-4 is very optimistic. I could see 11-5 and maybe even 10-6. Throw some other losses on there if you do, but I do think they at least lose one to the Browns. I don't have them on here losing a game to the Browns, but I think they lose on the road to the Browns because they're a much better team. We'll get to them here in a sec.
In my opinion, I believe the Ravens will get 9-7. That's what I calculated here. I think they have some good veterans on the team, but with a mix of younger guys, it's just gonna be a season of finding the right pieces,
finding the niche for the young players.
Exactly. Thank you. So, doing that, but it's gonna be right on the borderline. Will they make the playoffs? Will they not?
I think they get in. I think they get in.
Yeah.
In some respect, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I totally agree though. I haven't putting a lot of confidence in these young players could be deadly. You know what I mean? And who knows what the future is going to hold for those rookie players, but yeah, I mean, when you have to step in and you're all of a sudden you're the number 1 player on an NFL team, or you're the number 2 player on an NFL team, especially if you're a receiver, because that's often a position where you see it's a very deep position. So that can be scary for a 20, 21, 22-year-old kid. So like you said, they have a lot of young players. We'll see what happens, but I think they also did a good job in free agency. I think better than most of the teams in the division. The Steelers didn't do too much in that area. They lost, of course, their 2 players, but I think were cancers to their locker room, going back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, of course, the Browns. We'll get to them in a minute, but I think they did a good job in free agency and with drafting, too, especially with Ozzie Newsome being gone and they had that new GM. He did a great job, I thought. So, look, we'll see. I mean, when they take the field, but I think 12-4. But you know what? I could see 9-7. I'm thinking more of the 10-6 range is pretty realistic, though, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good stuff there, Dan.
Thank you.
Let's see how that does. And
I'm excited. This is a big season.
This is probably the talk of the town for maybe most sports podcasts or news outlets in general. How the Cleveland Browns will do this season.
Yeah.
They're oh my God. They have a new head coach, Freddie Kitchens, hired in-house. He knows the system.
Worked
he
his
knows
way up.
what's going on.
Yep.
Todd Haley's gone. Hugh Jackson's gone. But he knows the system. And Baker in his second year, he could potentially be deadly. And Odell Beckham, why the Giants traded him, I don't know. But the Browns have Odell Beckham Jr., a really good wide receiver who has played really well with the Giants. So
I I think the Giants needed to get rid of him in some respect, but the fact that they got nothing for him, Josh, is the most appalling thing to me. And this is what the Giants leadership has done. We'll get to the NFC East, and I'll crap on the Giants a little more because I have a good friend at school who's a Giants fan, and he'll get sad. So I apologize in advance. But back to the Browns, they definitely loaded up over over the offseason. It looks like they finally have a competent general manager. We never thought we'd see that with the Browns, considering where they were, 2 seasons ago, 0-16. Josh, they changed that last year, of course, going 7-8-1, and what a turnaround! I don't think anyone expected to see that, and Baker Mayfield deserves a ton of credit for that. Of course, last year they fired Hugh Jackson after they lost to Pittsburgh. They were 2-5-1 at the time, and they went 5-3 after that. So not perfect, but they had some close games that they lost down the stretch there too. Josh, they also lost some key players. They lost Jamie Collins, who goes back to the Patriots, which is where he was a couple years ago. They lost Jabril Peppers, goes to the Giants. I don't know if that was from that Odell trade, or I didn't see really what that was. And then Bodie Calhoun, who's a pretty solid defensive back. He goes to the Texans, who was probably one of their best defensive backs last year. And we'll talk about Odell here shortly. So, and I have them at 10-6, Josh. And
same record here. They're gonna lose some games, but they'll have a pretty good season. They'll be on the borderline if they make the playoffs or not.
I mean, on paper, their offense is incredible.
Yeah, on paper, but that's just on paper. It
doesn't matter. Yeah, I wrote down here. It's all
you
about.
You gotta see how they play before you take a look and say this is what's
about
gonna happen.
Chemistry, and my concern for that is Odell and Baker Mayfield are very outgoing, very kind of out there players who are in your face, sort of, and I feel like they're going to clash. It'll be similar to like a Donovan McNabb T.O. situation, where both guys want to be in the spotlight, and they kind of go at each other. So I don't know if we'll see that or not. I think these players are young enough to where, especially Baker Mayfield, if they tell him to tone it down, I think he'll listen, because this isn't Oklahoma anymore, and you can't grab your junk on the sidelines when you're playing now. So we'll see if he keeps it under control. He did fine last year, but Odell Beckham, he's just had so much off the field baggage, and on the field too with that kicking net. He had that game where he loved the net,
and that was against the Redskins.
He knocked it down, and then he picked it up and proposed to it. It was just all so odd, and he's definitely a drama queen.
Yeah,
so
last time he smacked the kicking net.
Yes.
And it hit him, and then he apologized to it a game after that.
It was so weird, and that stuff's distracting. If he's going to be successful with the Browns, he's got to move on from all that nonsense. And maybe it was because he was basically a kid. So we'll see if this will be a good chance to see if he's matured. I know he was frustrated with the Giants those last couple years, because Eli, let's face it, he's not the same quarterback he was in 2011 when he took the Giants to the Super Bowl.
Yep. Eli's almost finished.
I can't believe I guess they just drafted his replacement, which was a dumb pick that early on in the draft, but I'm not going to go there right now. So yeah, I think if Odell and Baker can put aside their personalities, their craziness, and their tomfoolery, I think they can be pretty successful together. But I think the Browns almost have too much talent, because you're going to have other receivers that are saying, well, I'm not getting the ball. And, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, yeah, I think 10-6 is very viable, and I have them as a wild card team if that is the case.
Yes, I do have them as a wild card team as well if that were to happen. So, running down,
and they have a pretty solid defense too already. They're like a top 10 defense.
Yeah. Okay.
So you add that to that offense, and I don't think they'll be 16-0 by any stretch, but they'll certainly have a pretty dang good record. All right, that's all.
That is the AFC North. The Browns, first place, Ravens second, Steelers third, Bengals fourth. That's what I have.
I have the Ravens first, the Browns in second, the Steelers in third, and the Cincinnati Bengals are in dead last. Chris Collinsworth, his ex-team, so I'm sure he wouldn't be happy to hear that. But they are rebuilding, Josh, as you said.
All right, so that was the AFC North. As you know, football is back, and we have some stuff to talk about. The Hall of Fame game was played last night, the Broncos and Falcons. And safe to say, for every Hall of Fame game, it's usually the most sloppiest game of the year because it is the very first preseason game of the year. Before we get into that, just want to run down our Hall of Fame inductees for this year.
Absolutely.
Former Redskin Champ Bailey.
Redskins, Broncos,
and a Bronco.
Very long career.
Champ
well
was
deserved.
really good.
Well
Ty
deserved.
Law from the Patriots.
Mhm.
Tony Gonzalez. Ed Reed, your boy.
A lot of great players on there.
Some other people, Pat Bolin, Gil Brandt, Kevin Maui, and Johnny Robinson.
Yes,
and
sir.
I heard a report that the Hall of Fame class could be expanding.
Really?
To a couple more people. Like, how many we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, I think I heard something like 20 people could get nominated or something.
Wow.
I don't know, but more people to add to the class. There's a lot of great talent now that could probably get into the Hall of Fame.
What about Joe Jacoby? You think he's finally going to get
He
in?
needs to get in. He needs to. Don't get me started on that. That's for another episode.
I totally agree. I can't believe he's not in the Hall
Yeah,
of Fame.
he needs to. It's ridiculous. Why I even watched the Hall of Fame game to support that, I don't know. But
Because it's football, and we love football, and football's back. Praise the Lord. All right.
yes, amen. So, starters, they didn't really play.
Right.
Matt Schaub, he's still in the league.
He's still around.
Wow. How long has he been in the league for?
He's been in since I think 2004. I'd have to check. The last time I know the last time UVA beat Tech, he was the starting quarterback for UVA. Fun fact. So that was a long time ago. He was taken in the 2004 draft by the Falcons of all teams. And then of course he spent a lot of years with the Texans. Then he was the Ravens backup, and he's been around the NFL a lot in the last few years.
You want to hear how far low scoring this game was?
14-10, right?
Yeah, you have a first quarter touchdown by the Broncos, a second quarter touchdown by the Falcons, a third quarter field goal by the Falcons, and a fourth quarter touchdown by the Broncos. So a score every quarter. It was a back and forth, mostly defensive game, but not a lot of starters played. But why I'm going over this is because football is back.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Amen to that.
Amen to that.
Amen, brother. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after these words.
The Josh Kirby on Sports podcast, part of the Mayo Please podcast network, is sponsored by Route 11 Chips. Make sure you find a bag today at your local Food Lion, Martin's, and Giant stores. Be sure to look us up on social media as well. For Facebook, the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast. For Twitter, at Kirby on Sports. For Instagram, at Josh Kirby on Sports podcast. You can also find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. Just search the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast. You can also listen on www.mayoplease.com. If you have any questions for the show, shoot us an email, kirbyonsports@gmail.com.
All right, we are back. Football is back. We have a couple last-minute things to talk about. First off, Melvin Gordon's agent wants a trade. Melvin Gordon does not want to be a Los Angeles Charger. Where do you think Melvin Gordon could possibly end up?
I think there's going to be a lot of teams in the market, Josh. He's just one of those top-tier running backs, especially the last couple seasons. So I have no idea right now what team would. I don't really have any clue what team would reach out. I'm not really a Adam Schefter or anything like that. I don't have that sort of information.
You look like Adam Schefter.
No, I don't.
Nah, but
He's better looking than I am.
yeah,
anyway.
but the big news I want to talk about.
Yeah.
We really don't have much news. All I heard is Melvin Gordon's agent wants a trade.
Which, he already plays on a playoff team. And the Chargers are really only one or two players away from a possible Super Bowl run. Would you agree? I mean, we saw what they did last year in the playoffs, and they got so close. They came within, a couple games of that prize Super Bowl. So
Yeah, so something similar. Trent Williams is still holding out from the Redskins, and the Redskins
that's not news.
signed veteran Donald Penn from the Raiders to fill his spot. Do I think this is a good idea? I mean, yes, because we're filling the position, but no, because Donald Penn's a veteran and he's pretty old, and the way the Redskins have been, I'm not saying they do this, but our luck as Redskins fans, he'll get injured.
He'll get hurt. Yep. That's just probably what's going to happen. Go ahead and mark it down. I hate to say it, but it happens every season.
Injuries.
And
I just wish Trent Williams would come back.
I just think they want to get a guy who, number one, people have heard of, because it's hard to sign a left tackle, and people are like, oh, I love that guy. He's my favorite player. Donald Penn, people kind of know who he is, but he's been pretty solid. I mean, he played on a bad team, Actually, for those couple years, the Raiders were actually decent a couple years ago. Now, what happened? I don't know. They were a perennial playoff team not too long ago, but then they went right back to where they used to be. Anyway, I got sidetracked again. I think Donald Penn's a decent player, but like you said, Josh, age really makes a difference, especially in the NFL. And you're going to,
I don't think he's going to be the same.
No.
Like you said.
I mean, you just get slowed down with age anyway, especially when you're hitting guys all the time. That's going to happen anyway. So we'll see how it plays out. I really don't wish anyone to get injured, and I just certainly don't wish that for him. But I just have a bad feeling about it, Josh, like you do.
I have
as
a
a
bad
Redskins
feeling
fan,
about
seeing
the
it all the time.
whole Redskins season, Dan.
Yeah.
The whole Redskins season.
Well, I mean, you have a right to be. Dan Snyder is. I'm not even going to go into that right now, but he has ruined. He's ruined the team, quite honestly.
I wish we had all night to talk about sports.
That'd be nice.
It'd be a long podcast.
I mean, I don't have work tomorrow, but
oh my god, we should do a full 24-hour podcast. Oh my, wouldn't that be hilarious?
Just drinking coffee the whole time,
talking sports, any developments coming in. But yeah,
that's a fun idea, but I don't know.
Man, I don't know.
It's an idea,
but. The Redskins, it's just going to be...
Same old.
I'll watch, but I'm not convinced they will do anything good until I see it. I am not a fair weather fan. I am a fan that is real. 100% real. I'm not one of those fans like every year, yes, the Redskins are going to win the Super Bowl. It's just going to be one of those wait and see type of things.
Yep, and that's what you have to be, man. Hey, think about the Browns fans, man. They stuck with the Browns all those years. Now they're possibly on the brink of finally making the playoffs. They're going to start coming out of the woodwork now. You're going to see Browns fans here in Winchester, and it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yep, so...
the NFL is weird. You never know. We know the Patriots will be at the top, most likely, right? I mean, Brady and Belichick.
98.999999999.
And the Chiefs will be up there somewhere. Now, the NFC is a little bit more wide open, I think, other than the Rams, and that's really it for the NFC. But, So, what were we even talking about? I got super sidetracked there. I apologize.
Donald Penn and Trent Williams.
Oh my God, I got so sidetracked.
Wow.
Sorry about that.
And Dan
We'll
the
see.
sidetrack
We'll see.
man.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it for this episode. Dan, any last words?
Thank you.
Man, I almost forgot. Bud Foster retiring
Yes.
at the end of this season.
And
I wanted to
go
ask,
to Tech.
I wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah, okay.
Bud Foster, an emotional press conference in front of Virginia Tech reporters, and yesterday,
I wish I would have been down there for that.
yeah, and
What a
he
crime.
announces he's retiring at the end of the season. The lunch pail defense will not be the same without him, and
He's
let me
the
get
founder of the lunch pail defense, so
Yes.
it won't. They might still call it that, but I bet they retire it.
Bud
quite honestly.
Foster's lunch pail defense. But anyways, let me get your thoughts on this
Okay.
whole situation.
Well, I mean, he is Virginia Tech football as far as I'm concerned. He's right up there with Frank Beamer, I think, and I think a lot of people would put him maybe even above Frank Beamer, because in the couple years there towards the end where Frank Beamer, where the team really struggled, the defense was always a consistency for them. And just talk a little bit about his stats. I just pulled up some of that stuff. And 7 times his defense has finished number 1 in the country in total defense. I mean, that's incredible. You're definitely going to go to a bowl game doing that every single season. He went back-to-back in 05 and 06, which I think two of the best defenses the Tech ever had. A lot of future NFL players on that defense. Of course, 16 times his defenses were first or second in the conference in total defense. So that's more than half the time, almost half the time he was there, that their defense was that good. And they have the second most shutouts. Only Alabama has more. Tech had
Alabama.
That's since 2000.
Virginia Tech's up there with Alabama.
As far as shutouts, yes, sir. Tech has had 22 since 2000, and Alabama's had 27, which is incredible to me. Since he took over sole reins as Tech's defensive coordinator in '96, because he started as a defensive assistant in '87, and he worked his way up through time.
So he's been there for a long time.
He's been there since '87, yes, sir. And he's been the full-time defensive coordinator since '96, which I thought he'd been there longer than that, to be honest, the sole defense coordinator. But Virginia Tech has led all programs in sacks, sack yardage, interceptions, and third down percentage. And those are just some numbers there to crunch. I mean, like I said, he's the heart and soul on the sideline too. I mean, he's so emotional. There was one play in particular that I saw a clip of. It was against UVA. I think it was in 2011. So 4th down play. I think Tech was up by less than a touchdown. It was a 1-possession game. And UVA goes for a little option, and Tech just blows it up. I forget who the player was who made the stop in the backfield for a 4 or 5 yard loss. And Bud Foster ran from one side of the sideline to the other, sprinting full speed, jumping up and down, hugging coaches. It's just amazing, man. And think of, I mean, he's coached so many players who've ended up in the NFL. I don't have a number on that right now. Also, of course, Miami too in their own conference had quite a few as well. But it's sad. It is sad, but again, he's had some health issues. He spent a lot of the last couple years in the press box during the games just because apparently he passed out at a game or something like that. He had some stuff. He had some health issues. So I think it's best for his health and just for the future. But apparently he's going to maintain a role within the athletic department. So that's good news. At least he'll still be around. He can still hopefully help recruit, because that's really been a big thing for him since he's been there, is recruiting the best guys on defense. So,
and if you're a local person, somebody local from where we're from in the Shenandoah Valley near Northern Virginia, Bud Foster actually stepped foot in Shenandoah High School 2 or 3 times.
Recruited our man Dylan Rivers.
Yep.
And really recruited him because Dylan was verbally committed to Penn State, as you remember.
Uh-huh.
And Bud Foster and was Frank Beamer involved in that at that time?
No.
He wasn't really as involved because he was stepping out, right? Bud Foster really recruited him, wanted him to go there.
And he switched.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he switched to Tech, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Dylan's
be looking
part
out
of
for Dylan this year.
That lunch pail defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dylan got a lot of playing time last year. We're excited to see what he can do this year.
So,
but look, this is the last year. I mean, I think this defense could it could be one of those magical sort of defenses that really steps up for their coach and makes it all happen. The question is, will the offense step up? I'm just a little down about the season this year just because of what happened last year. It was just a disappointing, especially going to school there. But you know what? I got a feeling now, and I'm convinced that this is going to be a special season and a special last one for Bud Foster especially.
And we'll be getting more thoughts from you throughout the college football season.
I would love
down in Blacksburg.
I'd love to give you my thoughts on the games because I have tickets to every home game. I'll be at every home game. Jumping around to Enter Sandman on Saturdays, so I'm excited about that, and Thursday nights.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. So I hope this is a great season, and I think Bud Foster is gonna push it to the limit this year for this defense. So we'll see.
Yeah. So any last words, Dan, before we wrap things up?
I've talked enough. I'm sorry. I've talked enough.
I've talked a lot too, but it was fun as always.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yes, sir.
Am I officially a co-host, or are we still working on those terms?
I mean, it's
not in my contract.
We're just here for fun. You don't have a contract.
I gotta sign that puppy. My lawyer's reading it, so I'll get it over to you. Don't worry about it.
All right. Well.
Well,
we're
again,
just
Josh.
out here for fun. But
Absolutely.
yes, sir. And that's it. The Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast, part of the Mayo Please Podcast Network, is brought to you by Route 11 Chips. Make sure you find them in stores, Martin's, Food Lion, and Giant. Make sure you find us on all listening platforms, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, the Mayo Please Podcast Network, as always, on SoundCloud, www.mayoplease.com. Until the next edition, Dan and I say so long and peace out.